All right, here we go. On a Thursday and on the start of the month of May, we have lots of things anew on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network, brought to you as always by our friends at Revich Investments. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Isaac Petcash. Our setting is the same. Our show content is the same. But tonight, as we get set to debut a new show with live guests, as we always do, we have some exciting updates that you just saw just a couple of seconds ago on our show this evening. And I want to start by bringing in Nick Artman, my partner in crime, my co-host, the man who puts up with me on a day-to-day basis, and the man who has helped so much with making sure this podcast network has got off the ground and running. We have some new branding, Mr. Artman, compliments of the folks at Edinburgh University and the Beehive Network. This is a new era for us. It's an update. It's a fresh, clean look, and we're excited to be able to show it off tonight.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the new intro, like, it just gets you pumped. I'm ready to go. This was an amazing job, by the team at the Beehive and over, through Edinburgh University. Give some shout outs, creative lead, and I'm going to butcher these names, Roswell Patina, creative content lead, Garrett Conway, production lead, Spencer Bosch, and communication lead, Bailey Plowman. I mean, it was a pleasure to work with the team over at the Beehive and working through Edinburgh University. Could not say a bad thing about them if I wanted to. It was fun. It was a blast to see this come together, and then, to watch the intro and pull it all in and the music. Man, let's go.
I'm pumped. I think everybody else is too. And as you take a look at some of the new things, we have them all on social media, but we'll kind of rotate you through a couple of them right now. In the top right corner, we'll get rid of the Revich Investments logo for just a minute. I don't think Todd will be that mad at us. You can see we love to use the tower. The tower, of course, the Bicentennial Tower in downtown Erie, such a landmark and a staple. We wanted to incorporate that in our new look. Everything that we do is Erie-centric and Erie-focused. We love local sports, as all of you do, and we want to be able to showcase so much of that in our branding and in our new graphical look. So we have, of course, what is a wonderful job of the tower usage. And then, of course, as is the banner that you can see here on YouTube, that we use on YouTube and others, just a nice, almost a Lake Erie-esque color scheme with some red sprinkled in there, our new Gem City Sports Podcast Network, Nick. It really is an ode to the area that we live in and an ode to so many of you watching at home who take in our show night in, night out.
No, I agree. And I think, it was really important for us when we designed this thing to be Erie-centric, to be Erie-focused. So to be able to bring in the Centennial Tower, to bring in, the colors that represent the lake and the sunsets, and then just the athletic, we wanted to be all-encompassing, right? We talk a lot of football, but this isn't just a football show. We're going to talk a lot of softball and baseball today and, a little football too. But, it's about just being able to cover sports and represent Erie. And when we explain that to the team at the Beehive, again, give them all the credit in the world because they crushed it.
And again, these are students who are doing all of this work. They do an incredible job. Clearly, they all have bright futures ahead of them, and we thank you all for their work. They do this on a semester basis. So quick plug to them and a shout out. If you are a local small business or a podcast network like ours and you're local and you're interested in kind of giving a new fresh look and a new brand identity, we definitely 100% recommend them. So head on over to them. We'll, at the conclusion of this episode, we'll drop some info on our social medias to let you know how you can go and reach out to them to make things happen. But as Nick said, we have a busy show tonight. We're going to talk in a little bit Steelers-Browns, and Nick and I are debating tonight. Maybe we won't debate. Maybe we'll agree. What quarterback situation is better? The Steelers with virtually no options or the Browns with a carousel of terrible options? So we'll debate that tonight and see what we think. We're also going to talk Erie SeaWolves, who got rained out tonight, but my goodness, they've been slugging the bats every single night. They sit right now in near the top. I think they're a game behind as we sit now. Akron in the top half of the Eastern League Division, Southwest Division standings. But we start tonight, Nick, with what has been a roller coaster so far of a high school baseball, and tonight focusing on a softball season. We talked so much during the football season and the basketball season about the region realignment, right? And how classification realignments would switch things with the region and things would look a lot different. We saw that in football where Region 5 was just an Erie County-centric, incredible, chaotic, whatever you want to call it, region. And we had so many great games. Same with basketball with Region 5 and Region 6 and even to an extent Region 7. And now what we're seeing in softball as we open the show tonight is Region 6, at least from my view, has the potential to have a minimum of 3 teams that will have, I think, probably at max 4 conference losses. And as we go through the schedule here, Nick, what we're opening up tonight with Harbor Creek, Fort LaBeouf, and McDowell, the 3 teams right now at the top of Region 6, I think the region realignment this year has been a godsend, at least from a fan perspective, with the teams that we're seeing right now, because it has just been wonderful to get to see so much great competition. And what we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, teams that are going head to head with each other, some of which have already split with each other because everyone's just so darn good.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head from the fan perspective. We'll talk to Coach Caputo here in a second, but I mean that rivalry game, the intensity, every game is like a playoff game. I mean, even in a season like baseball and softball, where seasons can tend to be a little bit longer, it's still, these early games matter, and they're going to continue to matter as we inch closer and closer to the state tournament, the district tournament. So I agree. I think the realignment has a lot to do with the competition that you're seeing, but also, give credit to these teams and these coaches that are out there every day. I mean, it was a nightmare if you were trying to get a game in tonight. I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. Everywhere in Erie was, like you said, even the SeaWolves were, they were rained out again today too. So no, I think going back to the original question, I think the realignment was maybe controversial at first. Why do we need to do this? But sure, I think you're seeing exactly why as we'll get into these games that we're going to get into.
Well, they were the champions in the state in 3A last year, and I was lucky enough to be on hand when the Harbor Creek Huskies took down Juniata 1-0 in the 9th inning of a crazy game at Penn State University to win the state championship. And here they are again, 10-1 in region play, 11-4 overall. They just took down Erie in a game that did get played. And more importantly, they just beat a team that had beaten them earlier in the season in the McDowell Trojans. And they just keep rolling, even with 5 of their 9 starters from last season graduated from high school. It is Mr. Tim Caputo, the head coach of Harbor Creek softball, and the man that somehow is finding time to squeeze us into his busy schedule, my friend. It's good to see you. How you been?
Good to see you. We're doing well. Busy, but we're doing well.
We were talking off air about how you're collaborating a little bit with our basketball insider, Tom Koval, on some youth girls hoops. What is at times more enjoyable, the softball or the basketball aspect of things?
They both bring their own enjoyments. I will say that. Sometimes there's frustrations, but most of the time it's enjoyment. And the youth sports, I get to be with my daughter, so that's exciting.
Well, we're happy to have you. And, man, what a season so far already. You, of course, heard us just a moment ago talking about the region standings. But, I'm curious because you and I talked a lot in June of last year heading through the state championships and, of course, the multiple walk-off wins that you had to be able to get there. You go back to last year, you had your senior dominance, right? Whether it was with A.B. Sapala or just that lineup that could really hit the cover off the ball. And of course, you had success in the circle as well. You come into this year and you lose 5 of those players. What was the mindset and the thought process and maybe the expectation for the team coming into this season, knowing that you lost so much and you had to jump a class from 3 to 4A?
Yeah. So we take a pride in our culture of our program. That's a big deal to us, and our girls know that they have to step up, and it's a tradition here. If you look in the banner in the Harbor Creek Gymnasium, it's filled. Coach Schultes has put up many, many, many years. That we take pride in what we do. We talk about that all the time. Our girls play a lot of travel. They spend a lot of time in the off season. We do in the off season in September, October, even the first 2 weeks of November, we go 2 days a week. And then we get into the weight room while we're doing basketball. So we try to bounce back and forth. Girls play multiple sports, which I think, really, be honest with you, does keep the girls fresh. But the girls have stepped up. They focus. It's not how much you do practice, of what you do at practice, we have found out.
No, I'll jump in. Yeah, sorry. Coach, I'll make sure my math is right. You've been there 6 years now. And you've kind of seen, by then you've seen classes come and go,
yes.
Freshman, sophomore, all the way through seniors now. Take us through that transition. Like Isaac said, you're going from the top. You are the top of the mountain. You have a lot of graduating seniors. How do you reset that to come back and be on top of the region now here? What are we, almost halfway through this season now? Yep. Just a little over halfway?
Yep. You know what? Like I said, we talk about taking our pride in our craft. I would say our pride in our craft. Girls, it matters to the girls. Like if you let some other girl down, it bothers our girls. And I hate to say, but that shows that you really care.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And you show that you care. And the girls really go after each other. Like they do a nice job with that. We went to Tennessee, played 2 state champions, lost 2 games by 1 run each because it was basically a time limit of a game. And then we won 1 game and came back. We saw some really good competition down there that I hoped build us going forward before region play even started.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the season so far, Coach. And, you know, there are so many games that were, like you mentioned, really interesting on your schedule that helped you. You sit 10-4. You just won your 9th region game today. Take me through, because so many coaches now, you know, it used to be that, of course, you wanted to win as many games as you could, and that's still a big component. But so many coaches today, regardless of the sport, they're scheduling challenging games at the beginning of the season. And as you mentioned, you were no different. You go down, you play Gordonsville, you have to play Camden Central, and Siegel was a good game as well. That was really a pitcher's duel.
Yep.
How did that help set the barometer of what this team could expect coming into the year? What did you learn from that trip in the spring?
We learned that what we wanted to do, we wanted to learn in tough games and tough situations and put the girls in situations that are going to be close games. Mm-hmm. We did that purposefully. So like when we had a game like we just saw versus McDowell 4-3, it was 4-0 going into the 7th. We knew we could bend, but we're not going to break. So the girls did an excellent job. We have Neshannock hopefully tomorrow, fingers crossed. And then we got Mohawk on Monday, 2 independent games from the Whippeal, who we wanted. Neshannock's back-to-back state champions, have Addison Fry, a Division I recruit. Those are the games we want to play at the end of the year.
Well, and so I think that's a good time to have those games too, right?
Yes.
You know, you start out the season with 2 losses in Seneca Valley and Gordonsville, and then you bounce back to Cameron Central, take another loss to Siegel, and then you've been, you know, other than the first game against McDowell, you've come on a hot streak, but you avenged that game on Wednesday night as well. Yeah. So I think it's a good time to bring on those Neshannock and Mohawk teams. And I think that's a testament to, like you said, that culture that this year's team has, the team first mentality, they're, you know, and even if you listen to the interviews and things like that, they're quick to bring up other players or other strategies, and you can see that humbleness in a way, but you can also see that fire, and even just in the way the last couple teams have played. I mean, we'll talk about the McDowell game here in a second, but I mean, to avenge that, you know, that rivalry game a little bit in the way that you guys did. I mean, you're setting yourself up for you know, a strong run here at the end of the season.
Yeah, we're trying. We wanted those tough games, and you know what I mean. You only get better by playing the better teams, and you want to play the best.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be 500 going into the playoffs rather than 20-0 because we want to play the best. And I'm thrilled being in this region this year, not because we're winning, because not only most teams are having JV, and if not, they're playing their varsity twice to our JV teams. We have a JV team, and it's really nice to see those JV girls compete and know that they're fighting for time too. They're fighting to get on varsity.
Yeah, and Coach, we talked about that realignment a little bit. Sorry, I'm jumping in, Isaac. You know,
no, you're good. I was going to say something.
Okay, good. We've been doing this too long together. How has that kind of prep changed your, how has the realignment kind of changed your prep, or has it changed your prep at all as you look at new teams and new competition?
Yeah, we try to keep the core the same of what we do. We do a lot of scouting. Our assistant coaches, Coach Gray, Coach Benally, Coach Panetti, we do a lot of scouting. Not so much that people see on the outside of it. The girls, we have to show a couple different things, but for us, where the batter stands, where do they swing at, what works. We watch a lot of film, especially the games that we played, like versus McDowell. We lost that first game 5-2. It was a cold weather game, and it's different with girls, and it's cold. It's just hard to get the bat off the shoulder. Yeah. And I felt like we didn't do that in the first game. We just didn't swing at certain things. So, you want those tough games. You want to get prepared for the playoffs. There's 6 of them are making it out of the 7. And so you start looking now, you start planning, you watch the Whippeal team. So you start keeping your connections close.
Coach, in talking about the region, I think obviously, as you mentioned, a good marker of a game was what you won last night with McDowell in what was just a huge 4-3 victory. And, we knew the storyline coming into the championship game last year was going to be, could you take down Juniata and their pitching? And now you get to face what I think probably on a somewhat equal or level par in Gabby DeLuca from last night.
Yes.
What was the key that you saw last night in putting up a 4 spot? You double your run total from a game ago. When you face pitching like that, what impressed you? What was the key for you to get the offense rolling against, and further down the line too, against pitching that you're going to see again, evidently like Gabby down the stretch of the season, even though it's not going to be McDowell in the 4A playoffs?
Well, Gabby's phenomenal. Gabby DeLuca is a heck of a pitcher. She does a great job. She's a Division I recruit going to Mercyhurst. She works hard at her craft. What's the nice thing is a lot of our girls played on the same travel team.
Right.
They played a lot. So everybody knows everybody. So that's kind of nice. So you try to throw them off with doing certain things, but our mentality was we let a lot of pitches go. Gabby had almost an 80% clip last night of throwing strikes. So we wanted to they're trying to get ahead. We're going to try to be a little bit of aggressive. It's not always the mentality with our program. We're going to be super aggressive in the beginning. But last night we had to be. The first inning, I don't believe we even scored anything, but we know what? Or we got maybe 1 run. I think we got 1 run, but we were aggressive and we hit the ball. We didn't strike out in that first inning. And even though we had 12 strikeouts, 10 to 12 strikeouts, we're fine. We were fine. We knew we could compete with that and be aggressive. So if she's going to throw a strike, you got to be ready to swing the bat. And that's what kind of the message was with the girls. Like, you see it coming. Let's take it. Let's take a swing at it. It might be the best pitch you get.
I'm curious because, obviously it was a 1-0 game. And I understand that last year is last year. You only have 4 starters back from this year. Mm-hmm. But how much did beating Elizabeth Gazier last year vault your program? Again, we could talk about Coach Schultes and his 3+ decades of dominance. That's obvious. But offensively, to be able to win a game against her in which, you saw she goes the distance, how did that help vault the program even into this season when you're facing great pitching like Gabby, like others in the circle day in, day out?
We firmly feel that's where that culture comes in. Girls are picking each other up in the dugout and cheering. Last night's game was rocking. Our girls, our JV girls in the dugout were screaming the whole time. They gave our batters confidence. And you say that may be a cliche, but like the confidence in the game is so big when you are up there. I don't try to make many adjustments at third base coaching. Girls know what to do, and we do it. And last year, it was the same exact thing. We only needed 1 or 2 runners. We had 21 strikeouts on us in a 9-inning game, which is incredible with 3 hits. But Maggie gets a base hit. We get her to second, and then Brooklyn, who's an absolute stud, a major Division I recruit, does what she does and got us a base hit to ultimately bring Maggie around.
Perfect transition because you mentioned Brooklyn Zapala. She still has 2 more years after this left of high school, and she's one of, as you mentioned, 4 players who return as starters. Take us through what it's been like filling those holes, some other role players that you think have really been able to help you in addition to the studs you knew you would have coming back this season.
Yeah, I mean, our 4 that were coming back, we knew what we were getting with them. Brooklyn and Addison, I'm just looking at statistics here. Brooke, who's a senior leader, is hitting the cover off the ball this year. And Talon is very solid at third base and pitches. Won a game tonight, had 5 strikeouts versus Erie, kept them off the board. Kayla Brzee, who played a lot her freshman year, and last year had to sit a little bit depending on the situation with AB Sapala. She had to get playing time here and there, which I felt sick to my stomach about because she's a stud. Went right back to being a catcher this year, was a great teammate last year, had to step in the Western Finals when I made a substitution. And you know what? It just wasn't Brooke's day last year. You know what? Kayla stepped in, did a great job in the Western Finals. Brooke started the state championship, and everything went well. But other girls that have stepped up are our main starters. Ariana Denning in right field is doing a great job, is second on our team batting .484, just looking at my statistics here. Emma Herniason does a great job. Caitlin Hilteweitel is a senior, left field, hitting the cover off the ball. Once again, she's over 400. Kayla Gossage at second base is filled in for Maggie Shoes, which was a huge filling. And Lacey Fortin at first base has done a heck of a job all season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's what stands out as I was going through your schedule earlier today and looking at the box scores as well on Max Preps. And you have your studs, right, like you said, but anybody at any point can come out and hit the ball,
yep.
right? And but also I want to talk about the defensive side of things, because McDowell is a great team. McDowell, to their point, it with softball, they're still scoring about 7.5 runs a game. So you go into this game, like you said, you score 1 in the bottom of the first, and then it's scoreless through the next 3. So bottom of the 5th, you end up tacking on 3 more. You're up 4-0. But then what are you telling the team at the top of the 7th when McDowell's within 1 run to close out the game?
So I went out to the mound. I went out to the circle. They had bases loaded, and had their catcher, Nagley, very good batter, hit a home run to beat LaBeouf. Okay, so everybody has their opinion, whatnot. We work what we need to do on our scouting report. I told the girls, whatever you do, please don't throw the ball around. So they hit a comebacker to the pitcher. Addison goes home. That's 1 out. Kayla probably could have thrown her out at first and got it doubled up, but she did it. And I told her, and now it's on me. I said, we talked about that tonight before the game. I'm okay with that. We're going to bend. We're going to give up a run. The next batter comes up. She does get a hit over right field over Lacey's. They score a couple runs. Okay, so now they're at 2nd and 3rd with 4-2. Next batter comes up, grounds out. We'll give up a run, 4-3. And then we just said, hey, listen, we knew the bottom of the lineup where Addison's had great success yesterday. Yeah. We wanted to get ahead. So I need 3 best pitches here. We're going to get ahead. And Addison, to her credit, worked with Kayla, did a great job, hit her spots, and made a difference in the game.
Yeah. And it didn't bother you today either. You bounced back with a 10-0 win against Erie. So, kudos to you guys.
Let's talk about the one team in the region that you've only played once, and I think we always love talking rivalries, right? And you mentioned the 7 teams now in 4A, not discounting General McLean, but Fort LaBeouf is that other Erie County team that you will have to go through if you want to end up winning District 10. We know the rivalry from last year. We know one of your games went to extra innings. It's not like there's much separation between the two of you. Take us through, if you would, Tim, the rivalry that you have been able to have. Last year, of course, in your region. This year, now you're, again, continuing in the same classification, but being bumped up to 4A. It's likely going to decide the region if all things go well. Take us through kind of what that rivalry's looked like and what you look forward to as we go down the stretch of the season, knowing you have them again in 12 days.
Yeah, that's a great rivalry. It's Erie County League all over again. We love to see it. Coach Litz does an awesome job with his team. His girls are always prepared defensively, pitching. They do a great job out at Fort LaBeouf. And right now we've been battling the last couple of years. We played each other. The one year, I walked the batter to face another batter who hit it over my center fielder's head. Last year, Litz put on Addison, and Talon King, who was 0-for-3, got a base hit, and we won that game 1-0 to win the region. So decisions are being made, and we love this rivalry. The girls love the rivalry, and we like to play each other. We are going there for this game. It was supposed to be at our place. However, we had to swap with the weather, which was totally okay. So we do go there in a couple weeks, like you said, be ready to go.
I know you got a lot of softball in your blood, whether it be here or just your time growing up coaching. With respect to Titusville and Warren and Meadville, is it neat to be able to have a lot of Erie County games on your schedule, even maybe more so than you've had in previous years?
Yeah, we like having those teams. Titusville, Warren, and Meadville, they gave us good games. Titusville's a very good – they hit the ball very well. Yeah. They do a nice job. They're well coached. Warren has an excellent pitcher who's going to Mercier as well. And Meadville does a nice job. Their leadoff batter had 2 home runs versus our pitcher. So, our region, we like to see that. We like to see those Erie County teams do a nice job and give us a good game, but not by saying that we're better than anybody by any means, or the region we were in last year. We're going to play what we were told to do. We've got bumped up to 4A. It's a mixed region, and we want those tough games. We like that.
Tim Caputo, Harbor Creek softball head coach, joining us on the show. A couple of minutes left with him. Coach, you've mentioned a lot. We talked last year. We've talked in this with taking on the legacy of Coach Schultes and what he was able to build with this program and bringing it back up. When you take a look at just what you've been able to accomplish in your time here and now, of course, off that state championship, I know you still have season left to go. But where do you envision this program? What heights, in addition to what you've already had, what do you envision this program being in the next few years now as you continue your run here as head coach?
Like we can step back and we go back to that culture. it's nice when the girls text you that have been on your team 3, 4, or 5 years ago, and they're texting you, hey, congratulations, tell the girls this, this, and this, or you see them coming in the stands, or you see Reagan Rand coming back for our ring ceremony in December at a basketball game because she wanted to be there, so she came home from school to be there. That's what truly matters. Those relationships are what keep it going. The relationship building is what keeps the girls wanting and demanding each other to do better every single year. And with that's accountability, and we're going to keep going with that. And we want to keep build that culture, and we want the Harbor Creek softball family to be connected across all generations.
No, I love that. Family business.
You got it.
And we saw that last year with the District 10 matchup in the Western Final. We'll see if it somehow materializes again at some point down the road, whether it be this or in coming years. Coach, it's been a pleasure to get to talk to you. I'm glad you got your game in today. I don't know if you're going to get to play tomorrow or the other games of the weekend, but the fact that you're somewhat caught up with games at this point.
We actually are. It's a miracle.
That's all you could ask for as we get into May. Hey, Coach, it's great to talk to you. We can't wait to see your run as you run through the season here, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you very much. God bless.
All right, head coach Tim Caputo of Harbor Creek Softball joining us on the show. He's one of the best. That region has so many incredible coaches. And it just, for me, Nick, it amazes me. You know, I got a chance. I was lucky enough in working at TV at that point to go through Harbor Creek's run. And what it mirrored to me was the Girard basketball run that we saw getting to the Western Final, playing Franklin, and then ultimately Franklin getting into the state championship game. But what I think is so amazing about Harbor Creek, and, you know, what was fascinating to me when I saw their team throughout the season, we see now the seniors, whether it's Rand, Sapala, whoever we're, you know, talking about from the last couple of years, you know, AB's the one that sticks out in my head.
Yeah.
Is the fact that when you looked at them at the beginning of the year, there weren't any players to me that stood out as, oh my God, they're mega star players.
Sure.
But they just work so well and cohesively as a team, and they have been able to fill 5 holes. And I will tell you what, I hope, just for our sake, that we get a D10 championship game between Harbor Creek and Fort LaBeouf, because that is going to be a banger. Kevin Litz does an awesome job at Fort LaBeouf, and I'll tell you what, those two teams, it's one of the best rivalries in District 10. Sport be darned.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I think that next person up mentality, right, that's top down. I mean, we just talked to Caputo for 20 minutes, and he preached the same thing over and over again about the family approach to this team. Whether you're a graduating senior, you're an alum, or you're a freshman, you're I'll pull my Italian out. You're part of the family, you know. So you come in, but I think that's the type of atmosphere that Caputo creates, and he emphasized that a couple points today. So I think that's why, you know, you kind of wondered what Harbor Creek was going to do coming into this year, but that's also why you're not surprised to see the success they've had and to see where they are right now.
And the other thing, too, is moving regions. With McDowell in your region, we knew Gabby DeLuca was going to probably be a candidate, if not on a short list for Region Player of the Year, maybe the District 10 Player of the Year, with what she has been able to do. And you mentioned being able now to stay close to home playing in Division 1. Fort LaBeouf has always had a lot of powerful bats. They're one of the best offenses, at least for me, in District 10 softball. And to Tim's point, Titusville is going to scare at least 1 or 2 teams every year. They had a couple games last year where they were almost able to take out some of the heavy hitters. I remember filming one of their games against Corey, and they almost ended up winning that game on the road. So it'll be very interesting to see how 4A shakes out. Of course, you have Harbor Creek and Fort LaBeouf there at the top. And with 7 teams there, likely they'll take 6, and we'll see kind of what materializes when Harbor Creek and Fort LaBeouf inevitably get named the top 2 seeds. But it'll be fun. We have a lot of great region races to talk about. Region 6, of course, is right up there. You have in Region 4 Northwestern, who is having an athletic season for the ages with Michaela Presser-Palmer off the back of her year. They're sitting at 8-1 in the region right now, and they're in front of powerhouse softball programs, Corey and Cathedral Prep Fairview down there as well. So lots to talk about. We'll keep talking about it as we roll through our episodes here, because the spring sports season really doesn't get started until May. And then once May hits, it's a 2-week sprint to the finish. and then playoffs. Hey, speaking of sprinting, if you need financial guidance, you should sprint over to Rebbage Investments. They are the sponsor of our program, and we are grateful for them. If you want more information on how to keep financial guidance simple, you can head to their website, www.rebbageinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number during normal business hours, 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. Rebbage Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. Keep it simple, stupid. That's a phrase that I absolutely love to hear because I'm guilty of not keeping it simple more often than not. But let's transition here, Nick Gartman. The Erie SeaWolves are keeping things simple. In case you have not noticed, and I am just fascinated to see this, the big question that I had coming into the season was, how much of an effect did Gabe Alvarez have on the 2 championship seasons, or is it just organizational success? And I think 2 things we've learned can be true at once. SeaWolves currently sitting at 15-8. They are only a half a game behind Akron because Akron's played 1 more game. But what is amazing to me, Nick, what if I were to tell you that in addition to that stat on that screen, the SeaWolves through 23 games have a run differential of plus 65. That is the highest, not just in the Eastern League, but if you were to put that number up against Major League Baseball, the Erie SeaWolves would have the highest run differential of any team in the majors as well. Second would be the Chicago Cubs. So I am fascinated, as you see early in the season. They got rained out tonight, but Nick, these SeaWolves continue to roll, and it is really, really neat to get to be able to see them post Gabe Alvarez still have so much success. And I think it's a testament to the Tigers organization.
No, 100%. And we talked to Sam Lebowitz about this back in, before the week of opening day over on Flagship. And you can check that out. Go back and check the podcast if you missed it. But we kind of talked about this, and we were talking about, okay, you go back-to-back championships with a guy with Gabe Alvarez. What kind of transition is left? How are you going to overcome what shadow is left? You also lost a bunch of players to AAA and then up to the Tigers, which is great. That's what you want to see in a farm system. And, but Detroit, to Sam's credit, has one of the best, I think it was the 3rd best ranked farm system in the major leagues. And I think you're seeing that. So the worry was valid. You were worried about losing your coach that brings you back-to-back Eastern League champions, and you have a lot of players left, and you start to worry about what's going to happen. So is it surprising? Yeah, I think so. But to go back to your question, I think it comes from the culture that has been created here in Erie. Very much kind of like what we were just talking about with Harbor Creek. It's that next man up mentality. I mean, you have first-year AA player Max Anderson batting .349 with 5 home runs. I mean, the kid comes out of nowhere, and he's slugging the ball. And then you see, memorable names. Trey Cruz is over 300. Carlos Mendoza's batting .333. So it's not just one player carrying them. It's everybody. They're hitting the ball in bunches this season so far.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Max Anderson. I think he played 5 games in AA last season, really didn't have much of an impact. He was, I think, a late call-up, if I remember correctly. But, the other thing that I think is intriguing as well, and this is something that we'll look for at the rest of the SeaWolves season. I remember 3 years ago when Erie first made the championship series with Gabe Alvarez, and I think the best way to describe it is they ran out of gas. And now that Somerset team that they played was loaded. I mean, they had guys that are current now perennial MLB talent in with New York. But I think the concern was, for me at least, when Gabe Alvarez came in with the Tigers organization, because again, you were going through a change. You were sitting there, and AJ Hinch hadn't arrived yet, but he was on the doorstep, is that there were only a few select players that you knew were really, really good, but could only get you so far. I mean, we all remember Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Dylan Dingler, even a guy, those 3 guys in particular that you have that were such powerhouse players. Ryan Kreidler's the other guy that I was talking about. And then after those 4, and the majority of them got called up nearish the same time, there wasn't necessarily that depth factor that we were talking about. Kerry Carpenter was the next most notable name in the list, and he didn't really have a great year that year. It wasn't until the next season that he blossomed. But I think when you look at Erie now and the Tigers organization now, what this is signaling, and I think we'll see this more and more as the season goes on, is that the depth in this organization now is so tremendous that it's not necessarily going to matter who's in the lineup. Because you talk about Max Anderson, but then the other friendly faces you go down the line, Carlos Mendoza was a huge part of the championship run from last year. Trey Cruz had to be moved from the leadoff spot 2 years back to 6 or 7 in the lineup because that's just how good the batting order was last year. And I think, Justice Bigby, of course, coming back for games this season and hitting the way that he's been hitting, and the tear that he went on at the end of, I believe it was 2023 before he ended up getting called up. It's really empowering and positive to watch. And I don't want to call this an overreaction now. I'd be shocked if they didn't make the postseason again.
No, I would be shocked if they didn't as well. And hitting is something that can be streaky sometimes, but the pitching is holding up as well. They're winning games, but you have 7 players hitting over 250, right? That's from top to bottom of the lineup. And then even Jake Holton, who's batting 212, is still hitting 6 home runs, so it's being able to score in bunches, to be able to, take down teams. Even in the series against Akron, that was one that I was really looking at. They come out and win 8-7, 4-0, and then back-to-back losses, 6-2, 5-1 wins, so they're able to not only just put up points, and you look at their schedule and you say, okay, well, who are they really playing? Are they really playing Richmond? Are they playing Reading? Who are they playing? But they're playing tough teams. Chesapeake was a great series early on. Akron was another one. Harrisburg is a great one, and I think we're going to have a couple great games here with Binghamton as well.
Yeah, you take a look at the SeaWolves in their last in their last few wins specifically. I had 6+ runs in each of their last 5 victories, and that includes a couple against Harrisburg from the last week, and then that win against Binghamton on Tuesday. The offense is really powerful, and I think that was something that, too, coming into the season, their pitching is not bad, Nick, but we figured, and really similar to last season to an extent, the offense was going to have to get them through. What I will be really interested to see with the Tigers, and this is something that even Sam Lebowitz talked about a couple of weeks back, and hopefully we're able to get him on the show in the next week or so we can talk to him more about this, is the philosophy with the Tigers organization that the way it used to be was there was a specific timeline for you getting called up, and, it was more of at least from my view, a conveyor belt sort of a line item where there really wasn't any wiggle room to move up faster or move down quicker, depending on how good you had played.
Sure.
And I think for me, the first domino from, my perspective fell when Kerry Carpenter got called up as quickly as he did. Yeah. And now you started to see guys get called up faster if they warranted. So suffice it to say, biggest question that I have is if some of these guys continue to play at the rate that they are playing, how quickly do they get called up? Because, again, you have Gabe Alvarez waiting in the wings at AAA, and he has almost single-handedly put together the Tigers starting 9 at this point right now. So I will be curious to see how the season continues to progress. We're only through April. The first half of the season goes until June. But the positive sign is that even if some of these guys get called up, I think you're still going to see an offense that really continues to dominate. My big question is, can the pitching also be as steady as respectable, I think is the word that you can say, in the opening month of the season, and enough to be able to have one of the highest run differentials in any baseball league anywhere at any level?
No, I think that's a valid point on the pitching side of it, right? Troy Melton's having a great year, 2.18 ERA with 20 strikeouts. Jaden Ham is leading the team with 25 strikeouts, but man, it's got to get that ERA down. He's sitting at 5.85. So I think that goes to where they need to balance it out. They're able to get the strikeouts, but where can you stop the runs, right? And maybe that's a defensive issue we need to look into a little more. But I'll tell you what Sam said, and because we asked him the same question, when you lose all these guys to AAA in Detroit, which kind of, I think, the weirdest part about minor league baseball is that's the point, right? You want to coach these guys up. You want to build them up so that they do then go on and make it to Detroit. But that makes it hard for, teams like Erie, and the Mud Hens to really just kind of put a team together, and how do you maintain that consistency? So, we talked to Sam about that, and Sam mentioned essentially, not to be cliche, but the next man up mentality. And that's the blessing of being in the Tigers organization, is that, the single A ball club in the Tigers organization is probably as good as some of double A, some double A teams. So, and you're seeing that in this year when we kind of maybe worried about a down year, and you're seeing them still, be sitting in second place just behind Akron in the standings.
The thing that's encouraging to me, at least through the first month of the season, is when you look at some of the names that have been household names. I look specifically at a guy like Austin Bergner, who almost single-handedly helped the SeaWolves get through the end of the regular season in the playoffs as a starter and get to the championship. He hasn't had a great season so far. Right. Other guys that I would be concerned about, RJ Pettit he's 3-0, but I don't think his stuff has necessarily been there. The positive sign is that there's always an innings limit, at least for the most part, to my understanding, on guys in Double-A. Remember, everything is set through the Tigers as to if there's an injury, how much you are or aren't allowed to play, how long you're shut down for, your innings limit, things of that nature. And I think we've seen so far Coach Graham do a really good job of limiting guys as much as he can and not overextending arms. Again, it's not all his decision, but nobody so far has more than 21 innings thrown. I think that's going to be a positive sign. And remember, you have to lengthen out your starting rotation when you're in the Eastern League, because you expect call-ups and you expect injuries. So I like what Troy's doing. I think Garrett Burhan has quietly had a great start to the year as well. And in 4 starts, he doesn't have a win nor a loss, but Jake Miller's throwing pretty well as well with his 16 Ks. He's only given up 4 runs in 17 innings pitched on the SeaWolves stat page. So, and I got to see a little bit of his last start just on video. So I think he's had a pretty decent start. He's making it difficult on hitters, and hitters average it. I think hitters are averaging under 225 against him so far. So there is positive, encouraging signs, but it's great to see the SeaWolves continue to have the success in the early part of the season that they've had. And who knows, you could be in another situation where it's you and Akron playing for the division series yet again in back-to-back years.
Well, and let me ask you this too before we move on to the next segment, is how much of this comes down to Andrew Graham and his familiarity with this Detroit system, specifically having played and have coached in Erie before?
I think it's a big part. And remember, he had a lot of success at West Michigan too. I think Gabe Alvarez is a tremendous manager, but we have seen the coaching just inherently get better because of the talent that has been able to be stockpiled, and vice versa, right? I mean, you could have all the talent in the world as an organization. It doesn't matter if you have the right coaching. I think when Andrew Graham was here back a few years ago for the year that he was, I think the Tigers organization was such in a different spot structure-wise, because remember, that was at the tail end of what was, it was a World Series run in the early 2010s. Then, of course, you have the ALCS where you should have been up 2-0 on Boston. And, a lot of things were happening via trade. And what people don't understand is, trades may not affect the big league club when you're being aggressive and pursuing things, but they affect the minor league clubs, right? Sure. Because you have to trade away some of your prospects. So I think it's hard to judge Andrew Graham from what he was as a SeaWolves manager when he took the reins, really before COVID hit. I think now you're starting to see again an understanding of this is another guy who, from my understanding, is a really calm, level-headed, understanding manager, at least on the field, and a guy who can get the best out of his players because he's been there. Yep. And so I think Erie's lucky to have him. Obviously, Gabe Alvarez to me is in a class of his own, and I think, and I maintain this opinion, that Gabe Alvarez will probably be managing in the majors at some point soon.
I agree.
But I think Andrew Graham is such a steady hand, and it's exactly what Erie needs. And if you're the Tigers, what better to have than 2 guys at the AA and AAA level who understand it, who have been there before, right? Who have experience. And so I think you have an organization now that gets it. And it's amazing to me to see an organization in Detroit that now gets it. And that now has the right people in the right spot, as compared to an organization like Pittsburgh. It's the polar opposite of what to do and what not to do, but it's really cool we get to see it being done at Erie so far with so many familiar faces who, And the other thing too, and I hate to go off on a tangent here, but
No,
but I think it's also important to note this too. There's a stereotype in baseball, and you know this, and everybody knows this, of the jobbers, right? The guys who are in AA for their entire careers.
Yeah.
But I think what we've seen with guys like whether it's Kerry Carpenter, I mean, heck, even Dylan Dingler for a while, who was a high draft pick that seemingly was never going to materialize. Now he's in the majors.
Yeah.
Ryan Kreidler, who struggled to get his way up through the AAA level and then the major league level as well. You know, the list really goes on and on. Reese Olson, who had to really fight to develop his off-speed pitches to have success from, you know, at least what I saw at Erie. And you see all of these guys who had to play, in a lot of cases, multiple years in AA.
Sure.
Some of which had to make their way all the way up through the rungs of the Detroit ladder.
Yep. And
I think when you see so many of these familiar faces and these, you know, guys who would be considered, quote, jobbers or lifelong minor league players, I have to believe in that locker room there's a new renewed sense of belief that even if you've been at the AA level for 7 years, 8 years, whatever you have you, that there's an opportunity for you to be able to get to the top of the organization because of the way the Tigers are running things now. And it would be something I'd be interested to talk to Sam about because and see if he has that same feeling. And even, you know, Sam, Greg, whoever's around the team, you know, on a day-by-day basis. Because you have to feel like regardless of your age, if you can put together a really spectacular year in AA and then in AAA, you can still get to the big leagues again. Whereas I don't know if that was the case 10 years ago.
No, you'd get rotated out. Yeah. No, I don't want to put you back on a tangent because I don't think I could wrap that up any better than you did. And I think what you're seeing is the change in baseball. You know, even with like Paul Skeens being called up to Pittsburgh so quickly, you're seeing rookies being called to the majors faster than you've ever seen before. And I think that's where, you know, the trickle-down effect from that is you're seeing other player movement, moving up, moving down, moving up, moving down, maybe guys getting a, you know, second, third, fourth shot. Yeah,
and look, it's still early in the season. You're 23 games in, but we are, I think, seeing and I'll steal a line from somebody else who you know, I really respect in sports, but you're start seeing, in my view, the dawn of the golden age in the Tigers organization. And what that means is that Erie is going to continue to be competitive. You know, again, I remember growing up and just clamoring to get to see a playoff baseball game of some kind, and you know, not taking nothing away from Gabe Alvarez. I think this is an organization that now gets it and is starting to show the fruits of the labor through the minor league organization. So,
well, listen, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I didn't taste playoff baseball until Gabe Alvarez, so this is new to me.
We all take it in stride, and we take it happily, and we hope for a third straight championship because we know the Pirates aren't going to have one, and so we'll take it at the minor league level if we can get it. All right, NFL talk up next. We're talking Browns Steelers. Let's see if Nick and I want to debate, but there is no debate when we talk about Rebich Investments. They keep financial guidance simple, and they do it well. They've been doing it well for decades. Rebich Investments, if you want more information, you can visit their website, www.rebichinvestments.com. Or call today, 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. All right, this was the topic of Monday's show that we really did not get too much. And I think it is only appropriate, Nick, that 1 week after the draft and 8 days after our draft spectacular that went spectacularly awry with our picks.
I don't think we hit one.
I mean, we hit the one that we were given with Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating story because you come out of the NFL draft and we cover the Browns, Bills, and Steelers. We'll leave the Bills alone, although everyone in Buffalo thinks that they should be getting some wide receiver prima donna, and I don't understand that.
I love Brandon Beane's response to all
I
that,
do too. I mean, I covered the team last year. Their offense had no issues whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough to remember when Tom Brady's number one wide receiver for seemingly a whole decade was 5'4" and is now making a living on podcasts.
Yeah.
You know, how in different spaces and how different organizations function. I want to get your take on this, Nick, because we talked before the show of how polar opposite Pittsburgh and Cleveland is, where the Browns, at least in my view, don't know what they're doing at quarterback, so they take everyone. Pittsburgh doesn't know what they're doing at quarterback, so they take no one. So the big question tonight, and let us know in the comments what your opinion is, which situation is easier or more difficult to navigate, Browns or Steelers, Nick? And where do you see these two teams right now from what we saw in the draft?
Man, that's a loaded question because I think you hit the nail on the head when you're saying neither team really know what they're doing. Well, if you ask Mel Kiper, nobody knows what they're doing at quarterback. But I think if I had to pick an easier situation to navigate, I'm going with the Steelers. And here's why. Not because they made better choices. I do think that if the Steelers knew – I think the Steelers know that Aaron Rodgers is in play. Because I don't know that they go through this offseason. I don't think they go through the draft without even, they had an opportunity to get Shador, to get Jalen Milroe, and they didn't. They went honestly, I think they drafted for need, which is what they should have done. But I don't think you can do that confidently without having a plan at quarterback. And I think one of two things will happen. I think they go ahead and go all in on Aaron Rodgers. They know he's coming. Or Tomlin's crazy enough to say, Mason, you're our guy. And I think he would be 100% comfortable with going into week one as Mason Rudolph as the quarterback. Now, the reason I think that's easier to navigate is because that is Tomlin making decision-making. I have no idea who's calling the shots in Cleveland, right? You see them go through. They have Watson. Haslam comes out and says, we screwed up. We made a mistake. This didn't work. We went all in. We pushed our chips in, and we lost them all. And then they go out and trade for Kenny Pickett, and then they sign Joe Flacco. So when they make those moves, you think, okay, then they're not really going to go for a quarterback in the draft because they have their three quarterbacks. They have Watson, Flacco, and Pickett. So then when you get to the schedule, when you get to the Browns draft, they don't take Shador in the first round. And then you think, okay, top of the second, he's going to be there. He's going to Cleveland. They pass on him again. And then they pass on him twice in the second round. And then they wait until the third round to grab Dylan Gabriel. And I think that's when everybody's heads exploded. When you were like, what? People are taking Dylan Gabriel over Shador. And then you had Tyler Shook come off the board and Shador's still sitting there. I think what happened was, in Cleveland, in that war room, you got to round 5, pick 144, and Haslam said, make the pick. And again, ownership got involved. I don't know when that clip was taken or if it was right after or whatever, but it's hilarious to see the clip of Stefanski and Andrew Berry just going, it's like, okay, now we know who's making the pick. So all that to say, which situation is easier to navigate? Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh knows who's making the decision. I don't have any idea what's going on in Cleveland, and I don't have any idea who's going to be week one, the week one starter in Cleveland. All I got to say is, poor Dylan Gabriel. Nobody even knows he's on the roster at this point.
So I'm going to take the alternate approach. I actually like Cleveland's situation better, and I think it's going to be easier to navigate. Here's why. Here's why. I think we have all agreed for so long that it's been Haslam that's been calling the shots in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And whether it's through a guilty conscience or through a mutiny in which he has somebody that locked him up in his basement and chained him down for 24 hours and forced him to say this, he finally comes around on Deshaun Watson. The reason that I think I'll say this. I'll put it this way. I'm going to believe and put trust in Cleveland that they have learned from their mistakes. We saw a few years back, they didn't have an answer at quarterback, and so they went with what they thought was the best option based on the current state of what the NFL does. And what the NFL does is they pay veteran quarterbacks a boatload of money so that they can come in and play the best they can for the team.
Sure.
That didn't work. I think the growth moment for the Browns in this draft and through this free agency is that they are choosing to take the alternate approach. And what the alternate approach means is that, and I said this to my father-in-law, who's a big Browns fan. I said, at some point, if you accumulate enough darts to throw at a dartboard, even a guy with a lousy aim is going to hit one time. And I think what you're seeing with Cleveland is a rejection of what they had and an acceptance of what they want to do next. And I have to believe with Joe Flacco in there, there's a reason they brought him back. And I think it makes more sense to me now. They did not bring him back to be a bona fide starter. They brought him back in to be a mentor.
Oh, they might as well just make him quarterbacks coach at this point.
Yeah, right. They've seen what other quarterbacks at veteran status have been able to do to help young quarterbacks, and they said, we're going to bring him in. I think the Shador situation can work. I think it can work because he now, at least in some form, way, or shape, has been humbled by his 5th-round selection. So I have to believe Shador can work. I also have to believe that Dylan Gabriel wasn't drafted in the 3rd round as a pretty face. This was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football all season long. I mean, he was just as accurate as Michael Penix. We're talking left-handed on left-handed quarterbacks, and Michael Penix went 8th overall last season. Sure. So, you factor that in with Joe Flacco being able to be that potential bridge guy to be able to help one of these two start. And I think you're in a situation, Nick, where even if these quarterbacks don't become studs, they are going to inherently be better than anything that Cleveland has had in years.
Sure.
Post Baker Mayfield. And here is my reasoning why I think Pittsburgh is in a lot of trouble. And I've said this from the beginning. I really believed that Mike Tomlin had an opportunity, which is why I said in our pre-draft mock draft that I thought Pittsburgh should either get Jackson Dart, which is why I picked him at 21, or I thought they should get Shador Sanders. I thought Mike Tomlin had a real opportunity in this draft to make a statement to say, I know what I'm doing with quarterbacks and I'm willing to take a risk. And he didn't do it. Oh, and I think you look at your situation now, if you're Mike Tomlin, and your best option is a 40-plus-year-old quarterback who hasn't been good in 3 years. I look at Pittsburgh and I think this is going to be Mason Rudolph's team. And Mike Tomlin continues, in my view, to not know in any way, shape, or form how to be able to pick a quarterback. And I just don't know if he's ever going to be able to pick a quarterback. So I at least get an offensive coach with Cleveland. I have a smaller dartboard to throw at, but I at least have a pro darts player.
Sure.
With Mike Tomlin, I've got a whole damn canvas, but I've got my dog throwing it at the dartboard. So you know what I mean?
But here's my problem with your dartboard analogy. When you're playing darts, you can throw 5 darts and hope that one hits it. I mean, technically you only get 3, but we'll stick with 5 because of 5 quarterbacks. But you get what I'm saying. But you can only play one quarterback at a time. So I see what you're saying. You're going to go through training camp, and you're going to end up with probably 3 on the roster. Pickett probably gets cut. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. But you can't just throw them all at the wall at the once, right? It's not like you can – what are you going to do, rotate them in per series for the first half of the year? So, like, when I look at that side of it, it gets convoluted. Like, in that analogy, I don't know that Cleveland does have the history to say they know which dart to throw. And they're going to choose the wrong dart, and then you're going to see another Baker Mayfield. Whoever they let go, whether it's Dylan Gabriel, whether it's Shador, whoever they decide to go with, then they end up letting that person go or trade them away. Then they end up having success somewhere else. I see what you're saying. I just don't think they have the smarts to know what dart to throw.
Well, but the problem is with Pittsburgh, and we have talked about this ad nauseum. I think the biggest problem with Pittsburgh is I just don't think that they have the ownership to be able to understand the quarterback situation.
No, I don't disagree with that at all.
And keep in mind, too, at least in Cleveland's situation, when likely you'll be able to, in Cleveland's hopes, shed some of the salary from Deshaun Watson that you owe him, whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to get at least 2 cracks at this thing to have a good quarterback on a rookie contract, where if you're Pittsburgh, you're sitting in a situation where you don't have anybody on your roster who is in a position to be a lesser paid quarterback on a rookie deal. Listen. And so I just think when you try to continue to take a bite at the same apple, whether it was Russ and Justin Fields as bridge guys, whether it's Mason Rudolph as a bridge guy, whether it's Aaron Rodgers as a bridge guy, I'm not sure how long you can go with that with the roster that you currently have and say that that's going to work. I just don't think that's humanly possible.
Mason Rudolph is the perfect quarterback for the Steelers to be able to draft Arch Manning in 2026. No, don't hear what I'm not saying. When I'm picking Cleveland and beating up on Cleveland, I'm not saying that Pittsburgh's making a good choice. I honestly, I don't think they want Aaron Rodgers. I think they're out on Aaron Rodgers. I think Tomlin is crazy enough to say, let's put the pieces around Mason Rudolph. Let's play conservative Arthur Smith style offense, and let's let the defense run. I honestly think that's the plan coming into the into fall. And Will Howard, I asked T-Car and Paul both on Monday. I said, give me in a 30-second response, does Will Howard have a chance to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers? They both immediately said no. So I trust both of them. They're both more of a scout than I am. So, I don't think that Will Howard is it. I wholeheartedly believe that their plan is to go into week 1 with Mason Rudolph as the starter and to just play that conservative, slow ball offense. You go and you draft your running back. You got Jalen Warren, you get DK and Pickens and Freiermuth on the outside. You beefed up that defense. They're going to try and slow the pace of the game down to a snail's pace and try to make Mason Rudolph a successful quarterback.
I will never in a million years say that Cleveland has better ownership than Pittsburgh, because that would just be foolish of me. But I will say
overreaction of all overreactions.
But I will say, one team is afraid to learn from their mistakes. The other team is going balls to the wall and going for this. And I commend Cleveland, again, back to my original point. I commend Cleveland for at least taking a shot at this. I think there's a part of Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan, whether it be in the back of their minds as well, that remembers the Kenny Pickett draft and is scared to make the same mistake.
Sure.
And you were sitting there with an opportunity to get one of Shadur Sanders, Jackson Dart, somebody of that nature. And the decision was made to go elsewhere, which, look, I get it. But, with filling a need on the defensive line. But we have seen so many years, you cannot win the Super Bowl without a stud quarterback.
For sure.
It happens rarely, and when it does happen, you have to have wicked, shut-down, unavoidable defense the entire season.
Well, and we saw Tomlin's confident enough to think he could do that.
Well, we just haven't seen it the last 2 years. So I am very...
This.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So, week 1, Browns and Steelers. Who is the starting quarterback matchup?
Well, I think right now I'm on a different train than you. I think Aaron Rodgers is coming to Pittsburgh, and I think he'll be the starting quarterback. And I think you probably have to go Joe Flacco for Cleveland. I know that's a conservative pick, but I'm not sure how you can justify, if you're the Browns, how you could justify cutting Dylan Gabriel when you drafted him ahead of Shadur Sanders, and how you can justify cutting Shadur Sanders because of the guy that he is.
Yeah.
Why take a risk on a guy which no one wanted to pick if you're just going to get up and cut him? I think Kenny Pickett will eventually be cut. But if you're smart and you're Cleveland, you start Joe Flacco.
Sure.
Because you have to believe that those two guys, those two rookies on the bench, will learn something from him. And if you're Pittsburgh...
Well, hang on. Let's hold on Cleveland for a second, because I think you're right. I have no idea. I'm not even going to pretend. I could see Flacco. I think you're right about Pickett, and I think Watson starts on the pup. So that leaves you Flacco, Gabriel, and Shador. I think Flacco is probably right, because I don't see how you start Shador over Gabriel, and Gabriel's not ready. So I think it would be wild to see them start Dylan Gabriel in week 1. I don't think Shador is ready for week 1. So you're probably right. I think Flacco is probably the best choice there. But yeah, I think Watson ends up on the pup or getting some sort of injury settlement. And then I agree. I think Pickett probably cut. Wouldn't it be crazy for Pickett to get cut and then Steelers pick him back up and start?
I don't think that's ever happening. I don't think that's never happening.
I don't either. Okay, Pittsburgh side.
Don't put bad thoughts into my head.
I don't want it to happen. I'm just saying.
So who do you have for Pittsburgh then?
I told you, Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is my week 1 starter. I really liked the idea of I thought when I saw Seattle draft Milroe, I really wanted them to go after Sam Howell. I thought Sam Howell would have been a great, and the price was right for a guy like Sam Howell. Experienced quarterback. I think it would have been I'm not saying he's a great starting quarterback. Would have been an upgrade over Mason Rudolph. But I think it's Mason Rudolph. I don't think that Tomlin at this point, if you look at the draft, he drafted character guys, like the Steeler way kind of guys. I don't think you follow that draft up by wanting to change the culture in Pittsburgh by going out and signing Aaron Rodgers. I don't see it.
Can I throw a wild card out there for the Steelers starter in week 1?
Love it. Do it.
Kirk Cousins.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a perfect example because Cleveland was in on him, but now they drafted all these quarterbacks. There's no reason to go out and trade for him.
Well,
I
think you have to know that Kirk is probably on his final contract.
Sure.
But he's had one bad year. You know, 2 years ago he was slinging things around in Minnesota, and he made that offense, even with Justin Jefferson, look like world beaters. Yeah. And I think I've been saying this for a few months now. I think he would be a great option for Pittsburgh because it allows you flexibility. Yep. If you get him and he doesn't pan out or materialize, it's not like you're stuck on a 7-year contract and you play Mason Rudolph. Yep. If he does pan out and materialize, then you have a potential Super Bowl caliber team. Yep. And you didn't draft a quarterback in the first or second round. So I think Kirk Cousins would be a great fit in Pittsburgh.
I agree.
And I do think, you'll think I'm crazy, if Kirk Cousins comes to Pittsburgh, I think TJ Watt won't be on the team for another contract. I just don't see that happening.
I think if they win, you do, but I think if they're bottom of the league, I would agree with you. Because he's to stay. He's going to want to chase a ring at that point.
Well, and I think the other thing too is you look at the way the market's been set. We talked about this with Wayne on last week's show. I mean, Lord, this guy's going to be due upwards of $50 million.
Yeah.
And it's just not reasonable. So, we'll see what Pittsburgh does, but I would throw that in the mix as a wild card, Kirk Cousins, because I don't think he wants to stay in Atlanta without question. You're not going to be the starting quarterback. And I also think if you're talking about the culture guy, Kirk Cousins is the ultimate culture man. And I think that could be something that could be very interesting and potentially level out the drama that's going to be caused by DK and GP for the next 3 or 4 months of the offseason and then the 3 or 4 months that we're in season. So it's interesting. You have two organizations going in two different directions. Maybe none of them work. None of them work.
And both are lined up for week 1, baby.
That would be something. I actually think they should. Pittsburgh versus Cleveland and the Vegas betting odds on who the starting quarterback is. That would be an unbelievable overreaction segment when we get to September. I am here for it. Nick Artman, your final thoughts as we end our show today. A long show. We thank you for being a part of it with us. But a lot of great stuff tonight. Tim Caputo, SeaWolves Talk, Steelers, Browns, and we got a new look tonight too.
Listen, it's a fresh time to be involved with Gem City Sports. We have a lot of new things coming up. The branding is just the beginning. We're coming into the spring. We're coming into the summer. We got, some new material, new faces coming your way as well. I think if you haven't been involved, it's time to get involved. And obviously, if you're listening to this, you're involved. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your teammates, whatever it is. We're coming for Erie County. We're trying to raise that bar. And like we've said since the beginning, we're just Erie County guys wanting to talk about Erie County sports.
We're having fun, and we hope you're having fun with us. Thanks again for being with us as well. Our next show, of course, comes your way on Monday, and we do want to make a programming announcement. Starting next week, we're going to be moving our midweek show to Wednesdays. Nick and I have kid duty on Thursday nights that exceeds that of 7:30, 8 o'clock. So we do not want to be putting episodes to you at 10 o'clock at night. We're saving you from staying up. So join us starting on Wednesdays next week. Still going to have some great content. We're going to start bringing some other guests in, and we're going to add a new member to our team that we're excited to announce in the coming weeks as well. So super excited for that. Stay tuned. Make sure to enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. Next show, Flagship City Sports Talk. Whatever are we going to talk about? Monday, 9 o'clock on FCST and anywhere you get your podcast. We will see you on...